Hello, everyone. This is Albert Espinoza, and this is week 6 of our MPA 540 Public Personnel Management course at CBU for Dr. David Powell. And this week's multimedia presentation is in regards to the Hatch Act. An image here is a picture of Senator Carl Hatch, who introduced the act after learning that the New Deal programs set by the government were using federal funds to support Democratic Party candidates in the 1938 midterm elections. So the Hatch Act was enacted by Congress in 1939 in the attempt to regulate corruption and possible intimidation tactics and factors of federal employees by elected officials into office. It also banned the use of federal funds for electoral purposes and didn't allow federal officials to strong-arm political support, with the promise of public jobs or funds for administrators. Some four main points of the act are: it ensured the political neutrality of government workers by excluding one-sided political activity by government employees. It prevented elected officials from using government employees for their own political purposes. That's a good thing because you shouldn't be using not just tax dollars but also staff for your benefit. It was also there to prevent public employees' loyalty going from a single party or public official. So again, you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of tactics. They were trying to eliminate that. And it was also implemented to protect public employees against politically motivated job actions. So that's a little summary of the Hatch Act, and it was in place basically to clean up some of the corruption and, in essence, create that separation of power between politicians and administrators. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the Hatch Act is important because it builds on the founding principles regarding the separation of politics and administration. It builds on the Pendleton Act of 1883, which established a merit-based system of selecting government officials, which went away from the spoils system. If we recall, the spoils system led to political favors, corruption, waste, and incompetence in government. And the Hatch Act also builds on Wilson's dichotomy of 1887 and the separation of politics and administration. Wilson talked in his dichotomy about politics setting the task for administration, but it should not be suffered to manipulate its offices. And then administration lies outside the proper sphere of politics. I can't imagine if these acts weren't in place, how local elections and how incumbents would use city staff to do things like remove their opponent's signs during an election, or persuade staff to tell some of their coworkers or friends that live in that agency to tell them to vote for them. So I could only imagine if Wilson's dichotomy, kind of setting that, the Pendleton Act and the Hatch Act weren't in place, how the spoils systems would still be around in today's government. But that's not to say it may not be still around. So for me, my thoughts and opinions are that the Hatch Act is important, specifically for that separation of politics and administration. We can't have them bleed on over, especially when elections are coming by and you want to remain neutral and not use government funds and government staff as a politician for your own benefit. I hope you enjoyed this week's presentation and my thoughts and opinions about the Hatch Act, the Pendleton Act, and Wilson's dichotomy, and kind of bringing it all together and why it's important for politicians and administrators to have that separation. I look forward to your comments, and I can't wait to watch your videos this week. You have a great one. Bye.